Did you know that ticket prices can actually go down right before the game? That's where Gametime comes in. Gametime tracks ticket prices in real time from thousands of trusted sellers, then shows you all the best deals. So we can get tickets at the last minute for up to 60% off. Download Gametime now.
Hello, friends, and welcome to the NBA Power Ranking Show. I am Tom Downey. I'm joined by the Gametime hotline, Brian Rauf. Brian, thank you so much for stopping by.
Of course, appreciate it.
I know you're a big NBA guy, so this is almost like Christmas to you with the season starting here. How excited are you for this year's season?
I'm very excited. It's more exciting, I think, than we've had the past couple of years, because the past couple of years it's been very much a foregone conclusion. It's Warriors and Cavs. And while it's still a pretty logical conclusion, and it's very clear that everybody's kind of fighting for second place, there's a lot more intrigue with a lot more teams this year, which makes it a lot more fun.
And we will start with some news and notes. We'll start with some rumors here, Brian. We'll start with, look, is LeBron James going to play tonight? Kind of a big deal if he doesn't go.
He's going to play. He's got a bum ankle, hurt it a little bit in the preseason, kept out some preseason games. I kind of feel like they're kind of building this up more drama than anything else because LeBron tends to have a flair for the dramatic. I don't see any way in which he misses out on the opener, in which Kyrie Irving, who he had said he was handing the reins to at some point, his first game back, I don't see him. Even if it's something serious, I can see him toughing out for the night, playing tonight, even if he has to miss the next couple of weeks.
And then one more news and note here, kind of a longer version of why Chris Paul wanted to leave the Clippers and why he picked the Rockets. Do you want to give us the details on that, Brian?
Yeah, so Jackie McMullen for ESPN had a very long, good in-depth piece detailing sort of kind of what went on behind the scenes there. And it was very interesting. A lot of the stuff is stuff that was kind of rumored about last year, end of last year, but was confirmed. Both Paul and Harden had come to the realization at the end of last year when they lost in the playoffs, both of them, that Chris Paul realized he couldn't win with the Clippers, that their time had sort of run its course, and him and Blake Griffin never really got along the best, and they didn't necessarily have the pieces, and he wasn't getting any younger. James Harden realized that he needed to have a running mate, another superstar, another playmaker, to help push them further up in the West and compete with the Warriors. And Paul had the chance to be a free agent this offseason. He could have opted out of his contract, which he had planned on doing, if he didn't decide he wanted to get traded to the Rockets, which are one of the teams he was considering in free agency. After weighing all his options, he just randomly out of the blue, a couple days before the new league year started, sent James Harden a text just like, I want to come. And Harden was just kind of taken aback, like, what do you mean? He's like, I want to play for the Rockets. The trade was done 3 days later. Paul opted in, so he's with the team under contract this year, obviously, and then he'll be a free agent, where as of now plans to re-up there after the offseason. So I'd encourage you to go on shotsports.com, check it out. It's a very interesting look behind the scenes at sort of what went into these two coming together.
All right. We'll see how they fare this year, folks. We're going to start here with our power ranks, and look, there's going to be some debate, some disagreement, so if you guys have any thoughts or comments, get them in the comments section. Producer Brett Scott, get them up on screen throughout today's show. Brian, we'll start with the bottom, work our way to the top, and a team that's been stuck at the bottom for quite some time, and it's probably going to remain stuck at the bottom at number 30. It's the Brooklyn Nets.
Yeah, now it's important for Nets fans to know they're not going to be the dumpster fire they were last year. But going from dumpster fire to bad doesn't take them out of the last spot. They're still going to be one of the worst teams in the league. I like the addition of D'Angelo Russell. I like the addition of Allen Crabbe. But you have to remember, in order to get Russell and guys that they have that hope to build their future around, they had to give up Brook Lopez, who, say what you will about him, he has his fault as a player, but he was clearly the best player and is probably a better player at this time than D'Angelo Russell is. So you're dropping some wins there for future players or for future seasons, hoping Russell can grow into something.
It's very much a top-heavy Eastern Conference, we'll call it that, because the bottom just isn't very good at all. Does Brooklyn at the end of the year, do they finish as the worst team in the Eastern Conference, or do they put together just enough wins to surpass a team like the Bulls or the Magic, perhaps?
I think they still finish at the bottom of the Eastern Conference. I don't think they finish with the worst record in the league, simply because all those bottom teams in the East are going to have to play each other at some point, whereas the bottom teams in the West, there's only one or two of them that are really terrible. So I think you'll see a team in the West finish with the worst record, but those teams in the East will be considerably worse from a talent standpoint on the court. led or coming in last by the Nets, who just don't have the pieces right now.
Well, there's a common theme here with the bottom of this list for us, and at number 29, yet another Eastern Conference team. It is the Chicago Bulls. Brian, they are very much blowing it up.
Very much so, which is a smart thing to do, but they kind of messed up by not doing it at the beginning of the offseason. They sort of toured around with the idea of doing so, then got Dwayne Wade to opt into his contract, which 2 days later they traded Jimmy Butler away. Got some decent pieces in return, but not what you would expect for a player of Butler's caliber. Then again, it was the best offer they had on the table, and they felt like they needed to turn the page. That's what they did, and they ended up buying out Wade instead of maybe being able to trade him somewhere else. So that some kind of iffy moves there, but they're hitting the full-blown rebuild button.
All right, we'll stick in the East here and head to the number 28 team on our list, the Orlando Magic. Brian, I think the main concern for me, and I think you agree with this, what's their direction?
Yeah, that's the big question here is just what are they doing? They don't know what they're doing, and they have a new front office brought in this year, a couple of new guys. They kind of cleaned house, and so they're taking this year to evaluate the players that are currently on their roster who they want to keep around long term. So while some of these other teams are tanking and know what they want to be doing and trying to identify some key players, Orlando's doing that, but they're also kind of taking this year as an extended training camp and evaluating everybody. They didn't offer a contract extension to Aaron Gordon, didn't offer a contract extension to Elfrid Payton. Now, Payton, you can understand, but a guy like Aaron Gordon, you'd think they want to lock up. So that kind of shows you just how much they're looking to evaluate anybody and everybody on that roster.
Extended training camp is not a phrase the Magic fan base wants to hear.
No.
All right, we'll keep it moving here. Head to number 27. And look, once again, we're going to stay out in the Eastern Conference. At number 27, the Atlanta Hawks, another team that very much, Brian, pushed the reset button.
Yeah, if you can't tell, the bottom of the East is going to be bad. That's why I don't think any of these teams are going to finish with the worst record, because all of these teams have to play each other and somebody has to win those games. So you're going to see some teams that are probably 8 or 9 win teams, maybe win 18, 19 games because they're playing each other. Atlanta, you think about the roster last season and what they have going in this year. They don't have Dwight Howard anymore. They got rid of him, which some would say is addition by subtraction. Got rid of Paul Millsap. They're really just tanking going in these next couple of years, hoping to get those top picks and identify some franchise players for the future.
Well, this next team on our list does have their franchise player, but they're still very much in a rebuild mode. At number 26, it's the New York Knicks. Brian, no more Carmelo Anthony for New York.
Yeah, and I think we'll see them eventually be pretty good by the end of the year, but it's going to be a learning curve. They still have a very young team. Porzingis is only going into his 3rd year, and he's the guy you're kind of building around. And this is his 1st year of being that real focal point in your offense. You're hoping Frank Ntilikina, the rookie that they drafted, I think 7th overall, I believe. Mm-hmm. You want him to sort of develop that rapport with Porzingis, but again, he's an 18-year-old rookie. It's going to take him some time. The rest of the roster, they were one of the worst teams in the league last year, even with a player of Carmelo's ability. And now there will be some give and take there because of all of the off-court and locker room drama that Carmelo brought. But I think you'll see they just don't have the talent to really compete with some of the better teams.
And the odd decision, of course, to sign Tim Hardaway to a massive contract after allowing him to leave just a few years ago. We'll take it now through the last
Classic
5
Knicks.
teams, all in the Eastern Conference. The Brooklyn Nets, the Chicago Bulls, the Orlando Magic, the Atlanta Hawks, and the New York Knicks. They take the 30 to 26 spots. That takes us in now to the number 25 team, and it's yet another Eastern Conference squad. The Indiana Pacers, now without Paul George, Brian.
Yeah, they were kind of stuck in a difficult situation, knowing that if they kept Paul George, it was sort of a lame duck year where he wasn't re-signing with them. So they had to get rid of him. Problem is, what they got back was not at all worth Paul George, and they got back Domantas Sabonis, who I think can be a good player in the league, but he's not someone who's gonna be more than your 5th starter, your 4th starter. Victor Oladipo has arguably the worst contract in the league. That's terrible, but they have more talent than those other teams on the list, but there's not much there to really work with.
I think it's funny. Your offseason grade for them an F- because they just got such terrible value back for PG-13.
Yeah, significantly worse than an F. You could put as many minuses tacked onto that as you wanted to. I think just bungled this offseason more than any other team.
All right, that brings us to a reaction poll. What team made the best trade of their superstar? Give us a heart if it's the Knicks, a wow face for the Bulls, and a ha-ha face for the Pacers. Brian, I made it the ha-ha for the Pacers because I don't think anyone's going to pick that one.
Maybe sarcastically, but no. Can we also talk about, we've talked about all these teams in the bottom of the East, and the Sixers aren't among them. This is a nice refresher, I'm sure, for fans in Philly. It's a good feeling.
I saw a sad face come across the screen. I think that's a Pacers fan feeling pretty upset. But Brian, between the Knicks and the Bulls, who do you think made the better trade?
I think the Bulls did. Now, I mean, the Knicks got back some good bench pieces in Enes Kanter and Doug McDermott, but at this point in their careers, you know who those guys are. The Bulls got back Chris Dunn, Zach LaVine, and somebody else back from Minnesota. But those were their two main pieces, and those are the two pieces I think that Chicago fans can be excited about. Chris Dunn had a terrible rookie year, was much worse than the number 5 pick where he was drafted, but he's still. People go through those rookie year circles. He's still has the potential to be a very good defender, very athletic, good slasher. Needs to work on his shooting a bit, but he's somebody with some upside who in Chicago will have the opportunity to play and kind of work out some of those kinks. And I think Zach LaVine will get to see him in a much bigger role this year and see what he can do, which he showed potential and flashes of being able to have that role in Minnesota, but obviously wasn't going to be able to next to Towns and Wiggins. So there's at least some hope and some intrigue surrounding those guys in Chicago as opposed to what New York's working with right now.
All right, folks, today's show is brought to you by the Gametime app. If you need last-minute NBA tickets, concert tickets, whatever you need, get the Gametime app at chatsports.com/tickets. Brian, I was doing a little pregame stuff here trying to see which Mavs game I'm going to. Look, opening night is $11 for a Mavs game on the Gametime app. I might have to pull the trigger on that, maybe leave work a little bit early.
That's excellent. I mean, if you can, make it happen.
All right, let's head on here and continue with our power ranks. We'll head now to number 24. And at long last, Brian, a Western Conference squad. It's the very young Phoenix Suns.
Yeah, and I actually think they'll finish with the worst record in the league this year. They're the youngest team in the league still. They have some veteran players, but they're trying to trade them. They're trying to get rid of Eric Bledsoe, Tyson Chandler, Jared Dudley. They're trying to fully commit to that youth movement and that rebuild and playing in the loaded Western Conference, which I'm sure we'll touch on plenty more times over the course of the rest of the show. They're going to have just probably 50 or 60 games this year that they're going to have no chance of winning. And because of that, they're going to, I think, finish with the worst record.
Well, as it kind of turned out, the bottom half of the bottom of the ranks were the Eastern Conference. Now we get into the Western Conference portion of today's power ranks. Number 23 on the list, it's the Sacramento Kings. And Brian, a team I know that you very much liked their offseason.
It was shocking, stunning that the team that's been as dysfunctional as Sacramento pulled off smart move after smart move after smart move after smart move. There's not a lot of talent there. I think sometimes with teams like this, we'll start to put the carriage before the horse and we see that they're going to be good and like some of the pieces that they have that we expect it to happen right away. And this is another team it's going to take some time for them to kind of find their way. But they have their starting point guard of the future and face the franchise in De'Aaron Fox. They made some good draft picks, brought in Justin Jackson from UNC, Harry Giles from Duke, who they're going to kind of keep off the court until January, February because of his past knee injuries. A good backup point guard in Frank Mason in the second round, someone he'll turn into. And then sign some good veteran players in George Hill, Zach Randolph, and Vince Carter, guys who can establish a culture that they didn't have in the DeMarcus Cousins era. So things are certainly trending in the right direction for the Kings, but they're still going to be bad.
All right, we'll head now to the number 22 team on today's NBA Power Ranks. And at number 22, a team everyone loves to talk about, Brian, it's the Los Angeles Lakers.
Yes, it wouldn't surprise me if they finished much higher than this, and they're not going to make the playoffs, but it wouldn't surprise me if they were at least competing for that. I think that's how much of an impact Lonzo Ball can make. We saw what he did at UCLA, took a 14-16 team to a 31-5 season. There were some new additions to that group, namely him and TJ Leaf, but it was essentially the same roster there, and he made such a big difference there. The Lakers have some talent. They have some young talent. I know they spent their offseason trying to save cap space for this next offseason, but there's still Brandon Ingram, there's still Julius Randle, there's still Jordan Clarkson, there's still Brook Lopez. There's still plenty of talent there guys that Lonzo Ball can get the most out of.
Well, let's talk a little here about Ball. What are you anticipating from Lonzo in his first year in the NBA?
I would say something along the lines of 14, 15 points per game, 9 assists, and 6, 7 rebounds. So he'll be a guy who impacts the game every single night on every single possession without scoring the ball, which makes him so great and is why he was the number 2 pick in the draft.
I know that they're open to trading Randall and Clarkson. Do you think they'll be able to find a taker for any of those 2 players this year or even potentially after the year ends?
It wouldn't surprise me if they found a taker for Randall this year. No, I think they should keep Randall because I think he fits kind of what they do well the most. But he's the most talented of those 2. And as a versatile stretch 4, has upside for teams that maybe need some young players to build around. Clarkson's tough because he's a combo guard, and he's kind of stuck in that role in LA coming off the bench. They could potentially try and get rid of him in the offseason, but I don't see that happening before the deadline this year.
And then I want to get your thoughts on this weigh-in as well that we have on screen right now, Brian. Will the Lakers get at least 1 star in free agency next year? And for those of you watching at home or at work, don't worry, we won't tell your boss. We want to get your thoughts as well. Get it in the comments section. Producer Brett Scott can get them up on screen throughout the show. So, Brian, will the Lakers get at least 1 star in free agency next year?
I would say probably. Depending on your definition of star, the answer is absolutely yes. With all that cap space, they're going to bring in an all-star caliber player, whoever it is, it's going to be somebody important. Their plan is to try and bring in LeBron James and Paul George. LeBron James, I actually think, has a much better chance of going there than Paul George. I think LeBron James sort of has his mind made up that that's where he's going to go. And Dwayne Wade also wants to play for the Lakers, and I think you could see both of them kind of go from the Cavs to the Lakers. That relationship between LeBron and Dan Gilbert and the Cavs front office, I think, is just that fractured, where he's sort of made the season his victory lap in Cleveland, and I think is going to go to LA and start his post-career and enjoy bringing back the Lakers brand next year. So I think you'll see him. I think Paul George, that's the guy that everyone had been talking about, but because of Westbrook signing that 5-year Supermax extension in Oklahoma City, assuming things go well there, I think Paul George will be kind of enamored with that and playing with Westbrook and want to re-up there.
Comment here coming in from Andrew back to our earlier discussion about the Knicks and Bulls and Pacers trades. Andrew says he thinks the Knicks made the best decision because they weren't winning. Carmelo was holding them back, and he says, that the Knicks are in rebuilding mode. So from that perspective, do you agree with that, Brian?
They needed to get rid of him. In terms of players they got rid of, they were the most dire need to get rid of the player they traded away. What they got back, I don't like the promise of what they got back. They brought back role players, which is fine if you have guys you want to, and they have starters they want to build around and see develop in Porzingis, Ntilikina, and Hernan Gomez and guys like that. But for what Chicago got back with Dunn and Levine, to talk about guys who have that upside, I think that's more appealing than what New York got back.
Let's continue on now with our power ranks. We'll head now to number 21. At number 21, Brian, it is the Dallas Mavericks. A promising young piece in Dennis Smith, but it's still kind of a roster kind of in between contending and not being good at all.
They're trying to navigate those waters into the post-Dirk era while still trying to contend. And as a result, they sort of have a roster of players that don't necessarily fit that great. Dennis Smith is gonna be good for a jaw-dropping dunk every night. I think his rookie season is going to remind us a lot of Levine's rookie season, Zach LaVine's rookie season, where he just, twice a week there's, oh my goodness, he did this. Or Blake Griffin's rookie season, where every day you watch SportsCenter and you go, oh my gosh, he did this. You watch Chat Sports, Facebook Live every day and you go, oh my gosh, he did this. That's going to be the highlight and the best part of Dallas' season, because with how strong the West is, they're not going to go to the playoffs with Harrison Barnes and Dirk Nowitzki as their two best players.
All right, let's take you through our power ranks so far. Number 30, the Brooklyn Nets. Number 29, the Chicago Bulls. Orlando Magic at number 28. The Hawks check in at 27. And the Knicks at number 26. At number 25, it's the Indiana Pacers. Then some actual Western Conference teams. The Suns at 24. The Kings at 23. The Lakers at 22. And the Mavs at number 21. And that takes us into the top 20 and back out to the Eastern Conference with the Detroit Pistons. Brian?
They're another team that's kind of stuck in no man's land. Because of how weak the East is, they can kind of sneak into one of those bottom playoff spots. But there's not a whole lot to like about this team. They were trying to get rid of Andre Drummond and Reggie Jackson at the trade deadline last year, they're kind of done with the whole Reggie Jackson thing. I think Andre Drummond has a role with them in their future, but that's sort of a depending on how they play type thing. I think depending on what they can get back, they'd like to ship him off. But they're sort of in this transitional period here of trying to figure out, kind of like Orlando, except they have a better roster, trying to figure out where they go next.
What do you think the Pistons are going to do with Jackson? A, can they trade him? And B, if they do deal him, what are they going to get back?
If they can trade him, all they're going to get back is a second-round pick. There's not a whole lot of value out there for him. I don't think they're going to be able to trade him because of his contract. Remember, he signed a max deal of 5 years for about $80 million, which isn't a huge deal in today's NBA, but that's a lot of money to pay someone you're going to want to come off your bench.
We'll head now further along here to number 19, a very promising young squad, the Philadelphia 76ers.
This is another team that we need to be careful not to put the carriage before the horse. There's been a lot of playoff talk surrounding this team and wanting them to be great right now. They have all the pieces. I mean, Joel Embiid, when he's healthy, is incredible. Ben Simmons and Markelle Fultz, past 2 #1 picks, look awesome. But combined, they've played 31 games in the NBA, and they haven't played a single game together. It's going to take them some time to mesh, especially with new pieces they add to the lineup like J.J. Redick. They could be a mess defensively. That we see that with young teams a lot of times in the NBA. They're going to look good because of the East not being so strong. They're going to be in the mix, but I don't think they're really going to make the playoffs because of those weaknesses.
Maybe some of the stuff we saw last year with Minnesota and them getting very much hyped and then having some issues to be in the same type deal with the Sixers this season?
Yeah, it's so obvious. It was the case of Minnesota last year. It's so obvious they're going to be good and that they're one of the next teams that people are like, well, I think this team could be really good. And then it suddenly becomes a race to one-up each other of, well, they could be really good this year. And the excitement sort of builds and snowballs on itself to where now they have playoff expectations without ever playing a game together, which it's important to remember. It takes time to build these things in the NBA. The only team that's really been able to have a group of really young guys who haven't played much together and do anything with was Oklahoma City. And that's because they had 2 MVP caliber players and Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook.
All right, weigh in now. What's the best young team in the NBA? Brian, is it the 76ers? And if not, who is it?
Yes, I think it is the 76ers. I think something that will be really interesting to watch will be, in this next offseason, is the Suns. Because the Suns, they're going to have the worst record in the West probably, or at least the second worst. Kind of rotate them with the Kings. Devin Booker, we know what he can do. He dropped 70 points a game last year. He's really, really good. Josh Jackson, the number 4 pick in the draft, is the defensive stopper, guy they need. He's going to be really, really good. If they finish with the worst record in the league and get a top 1 or 2 pick and end up with another franchise caliber guy in the draft, that's going to be a group to really watch, and they'll be poised to kind of rise in the West in the post-Golden State era.
All right, folks, once again, I'm Tom Downey. Follow me on Twitter at WhatGoingDowney. That's Brian Rauf, joined by the Gametime Hotline. Follow him on Twitter at BRauf33. All right, Brian, let's keep moving here on our NBA Power Ranks. We'll head now to the 18th team on our list, a team that lost a very, very important piece of their roster, the Utah Jazz.
Yeah, a lot of people still think that they'll make the playoffs, which I'm not so high on them on. Hayward was the only really guy last year who could create his own scoring, and it didn't replace him with anybody. They lost George Hill as well, trying to replace George Hill with Ricky Rubio, and Rubio he's a major downgrade for them offensively. They still have some good pieces. Rudy Gobert is one of the best defensive players in the league, could be a Defensive Player of the Year winner this year. Rodney Hood I really like, Joe Ingles really like, guys like that. Their depth is going to have some questions. Donovan Mitchell is going to be another rookie who's really worth watching. But there's just not enough scoring from this group that they have right now for them to make the playoffs in the West.
We'll head now to number 17 on our list, the team that started the year really bad and then really rebounded almost to make the playoffs. At number 17, the Miami Heat.
That's going to be the interesting thing with them this year. Are they the team that was terrible in the first half of the season last year, or are they the team that went 30-11 in the second half of the season last year? The front office seems to think it's that second team that went 30-11 last year because they didn't really make any additions this offseason. They brought in Kelly Olynyk, but other than that, they kept that current roster together. So this is going to kind of be a final test for this group. Are they the second team from last year, the second half team, or are they the first half team?
And I think we're kind of at the point here with some of these Eastern Conference teams where they benefit from playing in the East, correct?
Absolutely, 110%.
We'll stick in the East here and head to number 16 on our list. A team near you, Brian, quite in terms of a physical sense, the Charlotte Hornets.
Yes. They're, I think, have a chance. Before Nicholas Batum's elbow injury this preseason, I thought they had sort of a chance to be a sneaky team in the East. You can make fun of the Dwight Howard trade all you want to, and that's fine. Dwight Howard's earned it. Charlotte gave up 2 terrible backup centers to get him and move up in the second round, which they ended up drafting Dwayne Bacon, with that pick, who's going to play a role for them off the bench this year. But Dwight Howard gives them – he's still an elite rebounder, one of the elite rebounders in the league. And Charlotte had a huge weakness in that area. So suddenly you shore up that weakness with Dwight Howard. They lacked scoring off the bench. They were able to draft Malik Monk with the 11th overall pick in the draft, who automatically fixes that. So there's going to be some issues. Their ceiling is not very high. It's probably about the 5 seed in the East. But if everything goes together, they can be a team that kind of is up there with maybe the Milwaukees and right below the Torontos and Washingtons kind of in the East. If everything goes right. Now, these next 2 months without Batum will tell us a lot. Because Batum is the second best player and guy they rely on to create a lot of their offense. But if they kind of navigate those months and he comes back and they're in good shape, they could be a team that surprisingly makes a little bit of noise this year.
Let's take you through the power ranks so far. The Nets at 30, the Bulls at 29, followed by the Magic, Hawks, and the New York Knicks at number 26. 25 is the Pacers. The Suns are the first Western Conference team at 24, followed by the Kings, Lakers, and Mavs. At number 20 is the Detroit Pistons, the Sixers at 19, the Jazz at 18, the Heat at 17, and then we just talked about the Hornets at number 16. That takes us to number 15 now. We head back out west to the Memphis Grizzlies. Brian, a team that they always seem to be a little bit underrated and always give good teams problems. Right.
And they're kind of been a pick the past couple years to be one of those teams that underachieves a little bit. And as you said, with their grit and grind mantra, they always seem to be able to push through and get one of the bottom seeds in the playoffs and challenge some of the better teams this year. This year, I do not think that's the case. I think this is the year that they finally take that step back. They let Zach Randolph go, let Vince Carter go, let Tony Allen go, guys who are sort of the heart and soul of that team. They still have Mike Conley, still have Marc Gasol, still have quality players, but those are the only 2 really guys they have. They're kind of in this transitional phase of wanting to rebuild around those 2 guys while still staying competitive, but they don't have a lot around them. And in the first half of the season, I think before January, they play something like 20 or 30 games against teams projected to be top 6 seeds in the West. They have all 4 of their games against the Rockets, play the Warriors twice, play the Spurs twice, play teams like that twice. So by the time we hit January, you could be looking at a team that's 10-20. At which point do they think about blowing it up and trading Gasol, trading Conley, and just kind of hit that rebuild button? They're going to be a team to watch in that sense this year.
Interesting. All right, let's head on number 14 on our list. It is the Portland Trail Blazers. Brian, I think this is a fair question to ask. Is this a team that has hit its ceiling?
It all depends on Jusuf Nurkic, kind of what he brings to the team. The duo of Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum has hit their ceiling. They acquired Nurkic from the Denver Nuggets at the trade deadline last year. And Nurkic was a guy who averaged like 8 and 6, I think, with the Nuggets first half of the year. Then got to Portland, started 20 games for the Blazers, and averaged 15 and 10. Was a totally different guy and can kind of give them a presence in the middle they need with Lillard and McCollum in the backcourt. If he is that 15 and 10 guy, they're a team that can be a 6-7 seed in the West and can compete. But if he's that 8 and 6 guy instead, they're a team that's going to miss the playoffs.
Well, you just hinted at this team. We'll head now to number 13 on our power ranks here. And at number 13, Brian, is the Denver Nuggets. They just missed the playoffs this year, but I was a big fan of what they did in the offseason. I think this is a playoff caliber team.
I mean, they added Paul Millsap to a team that was close to making the playoffs last year. So you would think that pushes them up from 9 to 8 or 7. The problem is there isn't the potential with their current roster. I mean, no matter who else is in the West is strong and is going to be the West, and it's going to be tough for anybody to really move up. But just considering the Millsap addition, he doesn't add that real superstar extra element in that team that they really need. I think it'll push them up. It'll make them a playoff team, but it'll make them a playoff team that loses 4-1 in the first round.
What do you think of the extension for Gary Harris?
It was something they needed to do. Harris is a guy they like a lot. I'm curious to see how they're going to plan a future with him and Jamal Murray, kind of both in that off-ball spot. That'll be interesting to see if he plays out his full career there, if they decide they want to go with Jamal Murray, or if they ship Jamal Murray off, or maybe have him play some point guard. But it's a lot of money. He's a promising young player. It's something I think they feel like they had to do. In a year or two, we'll be able to make a determination whether that was a smart deal or not.
Let's head into the top 12 now. And at number 12, a fascinating team, at least in my eyes, Brian. The New Orleans Pelicans, you've mentioned this before. Everyone is zigging and going small ball. The Pelicans are zagging with big men.
They, I think, were crying the entire offseason at just how loaded everybody else in the West got. Because they made their big move for a superstar at last year's deadline by getting DeMarcus Cousins. And at the time, everyone was like, well, this makes them a playoff team. Like, they're a playoff lock. You have two guys of that caliber. You're a playoff team. Now, suddenly, all these other teams in the West got significantly better as well. And they don't have anybody around them. Drew Holiday is their third best player, and they just gave him a giant max deal that's going to be a huge overpay. But it's something they needed to do because they didn't have the cap space to give anybody else that kind of deal. So you're looking at a core of Anthony Davis and Marcus Cousins and Drew Holiday, and then who? That's the biggest problem with New Orleans right now. Cousins and Anthony Davis have shown in the preseason they look like they can play really, really well together. They improved a lot in that sense as the year went on last year. They'll beat some teams because of that size and athleticism that other teams don't have the personnel to match up with, teams that have gone small ball, but they're not good enough to get a top 5 seed, top 6 seed in the West.
Brian, do you believe that the Anthony Davis and Boogie Cousins tandem will be a success?
Yeah, depends how you talk, what your idea of success is for this group. They'll make the playoffs. That's a success. Are they going to play well together and be the most dominant front court duo in the league? One of, if not the best, I say that's a success. Are they going to be a contender that wins a playoff series? No. Just because of the other circumstances. They did the best they could with what they had, and it was a home run. But everybody else did better. And that's kind of something they're going to have to worry about.
All right, folks, again, today's show is brought to you by the Gametime app. If you need last-minute NBA, sports, or concert tickets, head over to the Gametime app to get them up to 60% off compared to some of the other ticket sellers. It's chatsports.com/tickets. The reviews are fantastic on the iOS and the Play Store. It is a must-download app if you're a sports fan. All right, we will now continue on here for our power rankings into number 11. And at number 11, another, I think, promising young team, Brian, the Milwaukee Bucks.
They would be higher if Jabari Parker wasn't out until February with the torn ACL he suffered last year. Giannis Antetokounmpo, a.k.a. Greek Freak, is going to be – he's my pick for the MVP this year. I think you're going to see him kind of go into that Russell Westbrook, James Harden mold of a guy who doesn't have any help, who can do everything and takes everything over. He led Milwaukee in points, rebounds, assists, steals, blocks last year. And if you look everywhere else around the league, all those other superstars, MVP candidates, other than LeBron James, who doesn't care about regular season anymore, and Kawhi, every other MVP candidate is playing with another MVP candidate, at least one other MVP candidate. As we saw with Steph and KD last year in Golden State, kind of cancel each other out. So it's going to go to one of those guys who is by themselves, has to put up all their stats. And that's going to be Giannis this year. Now, can he carry Milwaukee to wins? That's kind of the next leap we're looking to see. I think he will. I think he'll have them as the 4 or 5 seed in the East this year, especially once Parker gets back. But they're going to be an interesting team to watch this year.
I will take you now through the power ranks here. Number 30, the Brooklyn Nets. The Bulls at 29. The Magic at number 28. The Hawks at 27. And the Knicks at number 26. Number 25 is the Indiana Pacers, followed by the Phoenix Suns. The Kings at 24. The Lakers at 22. And the Mavs at number 21. The Pistons at 20, 76ers at 19, Jazz at 18, the Heat at 17, and the Hornets at 16. And then our most recent 5, the Grizzlies at 15, the Trailblazers at 14, the Nuggets at 13, the Pelicans at 12, and the Bucks at number 11. That takes us in now to the top 10. And at number 10, Brian, it's the Clippers, a very much rebuilt Clippers squad.
Yeah, and a lot of people think they're going to be a disaster or take a major step back this year without Chris Paul. I don't think so. Blake Griffin is now their unquestioned go-to guy, and I think he likes that role. DeAndre Jordan, you know who he is. He's an elite rebounder, shot blocker, dunker at the rim. They finally figured out their small forward position with Danilo Gallinari. They got some good pieces in return for Paul. They got Patrick Beverley, who's one of the best defensive point guards in the league. They got Lou Williams, who's one of the best sixth men in the league. You got Sam Decker, who's going to come off the bench and be a really good versatile player for them. So they got more pieces. They don't have the big three or the real stars that we've come to know from this team in the past, but I think they have a really good, talented rotation that I think will carry them to a 5-6 seed, maybe even a 4 seed, depending on how things shake out in the West.
All right. So we're now not deep in top 10. We're at the beginning here of the top 10 at number 9. Another team that, Brian, maybe they've already hit their ceiling with the Toronto. Sorry, Brian. I think we lost you there for a second. At number 9, the Toronto Raptors. Excuse me.
Yeah, they're a team that what are you doing? Like they're sitting there. They're keeping the same core and they keep hitting that glass ceiling, keep hitting that glass ceiling, and are thinking Serge Ibaka is going to be the thing that breaks it open, allows them to compete with the Cavs and the Celtics at the top of the East and beat both of them. That's not happening. If you're a Raptors fan, you're going into this year hoping for the 3 seed, probably going to get a 4 or 5 seed. If you win your first round series, you're definitely losing the second. They're a team that is they're like the mid 2000s Hawks of Joe Johnson and Josh Smith and Al Horford. They were a team that was good and consistent. You knew they were going to be in the middle to the top of the Eastern Conference playoffs, but you knew they were not going to go to conference finals. That's who the Raptors are this year.
I think that's a pretty fair assessment then. Heading out to number 8 on our rankings, the Washington Wizards here check in at number 8. Brian, I like this Wizards team a lot, but I don't know if they're good enough to pass the Celtics or the Cavs quite yet.
Their starting lineup is good enough to compete with them. John Wall, Bradley Beal, Otto Porter, Marcin Gortat, Markieff Morris. Very good starting 5. When they were healthy and playing together last year, they were a top 3, top 5 team in the NBA. That lineup was top 3, top 5 lineup in the NBA. The problem with them was their bench. They had the worst bench of any playoff team in the NBA last year. Got nothing from them. They tried to revamp it a little bit. Brought in Tim Frazier from the Pelicans to be the backup point guard. Brought in Jody Meeks to help try and provide some shooting. But I don't think either of those are major upgrades. So until we see that bench improve, they're going to be kind of stuck in the middle there, where they're better than teams like Toronto, I think, but not as good as Boston and Cleveland.
We'll head now to number 7, back out west here to the Western Conference, a team that's very much trending upward in terms of their stock, the Minnesota Timberwolves.
Yeah, and all of this is going to come down to the Timberwolves' success this year is going to come down to how good they are defensively. Offensively, they're going to be great. Karl-Anthony Towns is a stud. Andrew Wiggins is a stud. Jimmy Butler is a proven stud time and time again. You have a big 3 there who's essentially going to be unstoppable with Jeff Teague as your 4th option. That's a pretty good 4th option. Defensively, though, was what killed them last year. And as we talked about with the Sixers, with young teams, that's something that we see a lot as young teams kind of grow. With a Tom Thibodeau coach team, you expect that to improve. With the addition of Jimmy Butler, a lockdown defender, you expect that to improve as well. Time will tell, but they certainly have the talent of a top 5, top 7 team here in the NBA.
All right, so the Timberwolves there check in at number 7. Comment here coming in from Garrett Matthew asks, have the Los Angeles Lakers appeared yet? Unfortunately, Garrett, yes, they have. They were quite a ways back. If you missed it, don't worry. A, we're going to play the whole show over again, and B, in a little bit here, we'll take you through all the teams so far in groups of 5. But yes, LA has already appeared on this list. We'll continue.
Unfortunately, they are not a top 5 team in the NBA.
That is correct, Brian. Heading out to number 6, a team that has a strong argument for being a top 5 team because they've been one for years now, the San Antonio Spurs.
Yes. Now, I will preface my blurb on them by saying that these are always kind of years where Greg Popovich and Kawhi Leonard secretly, quietly win 65 games and are within like a game or 2 of the team that finishes in the top of the conference and win the championship. These are the years where that happens. Like in the past, but with how strong the West is, how strong the Rockets got, how strong the Thunder got, the Warriors being who they are, this feels like a time where the Spurs may take a step back and be a 3 or 4 seed in the West.
Brian, what do you think
it feels weird. It feels weird saying that, but looking at the way things shake out, that's the way things look.
All right, Brian, what do you think of the extension for LaMarcus Aldridge? 3 years, $72.3 million.
That was one of the most confusing things of the offseason. They tried to trade him at the trade deadline last year very aggressively, and then even more aggressively tried to trade him before the draft, at the draft this year. They were doing whatever they could to get rid of LaMarcus Aldridge. And then they re-upped with him for 3 years, which it baffles me. Either LaMarcus had a sit-down heart-to-heart with Greg Popovich and recommitted himself to playing and being a Spur, then I understand that. But without that happening, I don't know what the thinking was behind this.
All right, folks, for any of you just now joining us, we'll take you through our power ranks so far. At number 30, it's the Brooklyn Nets. The Bulls at 29, the Magic at 28, then the Hawks and the Knicks at 27 and number 26. The Pacers are at 25, the Suns are at 24, the Kings at 23. There are the LA Lakers at number 22, the Mavs at 21, the Pistons check in at 20, the 76ers check in there at number 19, the Jazz at number 18, again, no Gordon Hayward. 17 are the Heat, and the Hornets take the number 16 spot. At number 15, it's the Memphis Grizzlies, the Trailblazers at 14, Denver at 13, the Pelicans at 12, the Bucks at 11, the Clippers check in at number 10, Toronto is number 9, the Wizards at number 8, the Timberwolves at number 7, and we just had the Spurs at number 6. That takes us into the top 5, and at number 5, Brian, it is the Boston Celtics, the very much new-look Boston Celtics as well.
75% of the roster is different than what it was last year. And most people, I would say a majority of NBA fans want to see them overtake the Cavs in the East and contend and be a real threat to the Cavs in the East, which I don't think they are. I think they're still very clearly the second-best team behind the Cavs. The addition of Kyrie Irving was great, but he's not a guy who we've seen be able to play well without LeBron James. And even if he does, if he lives up to his averages from last year, all those averages are still worse than what they got from Isaiah Thomas last year. Kyrie can get his own offense better than Isaiah and is probably more reliable in that aspect, but you're not getting any improvement from that spot because of how good Isaiah Thomas was last year. The real difference with them is going to be Gordon Hayward adding another shooter, another playmaker, guy like that, and a guy like Jason Tatum off the bench. Those are going to be where you see the Celtics improve the most as opposed to what you get from Kyrie at the point guard position. Because of that, I think they're better than they were last year, obviously. You can't add an all-star like Hayward and a scorer like Tatum and be the same that you were, but they're not on the Cavs level quite yet.
All right, weighing here, kind of coming off this Boston talk of what team improved the most this offseason. Folks, get your comments in the comment section. We can bring them up on air. Brian, was it Boston or was it somebody else for you?
It was someone else for me. We'll talk more about who that is coming up later in these rankings. But because of what I just said with Boston, with the Kyrie thing was essentially a wash with Isaiah Thomas, I think they got better. There's no secret they got better, but a lot of other teams got a lot better.
All right. Once again, folks, I'm Tom Downey. Follow me on Twitter at WhatGoingDowney. That's Brian Rauf via the Gametime hotline at BRauf33. Give him a follow on Twitter as well. Head now into the top 4, very much the title contenders. And at number 4, Brian, it's the number 1 team in the Eastern Conference, the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Yeah, and this group, I think, actually, because of that Kyrie Irving trade, is actually now better equipped to handle the Warriors if they should meet again in the finals. You had another legit wing defender in Jay Crowder. Your point guard's still going to be fine with Isaiah Thomas playing there and Derrick Rose coming off the bench. That's a major upgrade. Dwayne Wade will give them something, but he's not something you're going to be able to rely on every night. But having Crowder there from the Celtics back adds them another ring defender, which they will need against the Warriors, and it seems like the Celtics. Crowder's going to guard Hayward. You can have LeBron guard Kyrie, which I'm sure he's going to really, really want to do. So you're looking at a team that I think is more versatile than what we've seen in years past. Shooting is going to be a problem, but we've seen LeBron James teams overcome that. I think maybe J.R. Smith has a bigger role as the year goes on, but they're still, with the talent they added, the best team in the East.
Let's get another poll in here. Brian, this has been a topic of debate for, call it a year now, of will LeBron stay in Cleveland. So we want your guys' votes. Give us a heart if it's a yes, a wow face for an I don't know, a haha for the that he will join LA, or an angry face for no, he'll join a non-LA team. So Brian, what's going to happen here with LeBron? I already see quite a few LA votes flowing in.
Yeah, I think the Kyrie trade made him more apt to stay because it's now fully his team and fully on him. If they win the championship this year, there's no way he leaves. But again, that's a major long shot them win the championship this year. I think at the end of the day, he's still pretty much set on going to LA and joining the Lakers. Playing in Los Angeles, being in Los Angeles where he has a house and his kids are enrolled in school. Everything's kind of set up for him. Plays for Magic Johnson, gets to kind of restore the Lakers lore, gets to give his blueprint, which he was trying to do with Kyrie, to Lonzo Ball. Play alongside another superstar and maybe bring Dwayne Wade in as well, that mid-level exception. I think at the end of the day, his mind's sort of set on the Lakers. Things can change that with this year and his love affair with Cleveland. But if it was just with the Cavs, he wouldn't be back with them.
I've seen quite a few votes come in, and it looks to me like the no, he'll join LA is currently in the lead right now. So we're going to say that's the winner. We'll see if that ends up being the case. We'll know again at the end of the year. Head now to number 3 here on our NBA Power Ranks. And at number 3, Brian, a team with a fun new piece in Chris Paul. It's the Houston Rockets.
The best thing about the offseason for the Rockets, one of the best moves, along with just getting Chris Paul, was the fact they didn't have to give up any of their real major pieces to get him back, or to get him. When we talked about the Clippers, Beverly is a good piece, Williams is a good piece, Sam Dekker is a good piece, but he's not Eric Gordon. They're not Trevor Ariza. They're not Ryan Anderson because they wanted to trade for Carmelo. They're not Clint Capella. Those are their key guys that they needed to have around this duo for them to compete with teams at the top of the Western Conference, which they're able to do. And the addition of Paul is great. I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens with Paul and Harden on the court together at the same time. D'Antoni talked a little bit about playing them both together for what amounts to a quarter and a half of the game, and sort of rotating who's a point guard with each kind of unit, and then being on the court at the beginning of games and the end of games. So it'll be interesting to see how they sort of mesh and play together as the season goes on. But it was a huge addition for the Rockets that takes them from a good team in the West to a real contender.
And if you've been staying along here for the entire show, folks, you know who is at number 2, basically because of process of elimination, because we all know who number 1 is. But at number 2, Brian, it is the Oklahoma City Thunder. I take it you are a huge fan of the additions of Paul George and Carmelo Anthony.
The addition of Paul George by itself, he was essentially replacing the poor man's version of Kevin Durant, which is, that poor man still has a good amount of money, but compared to the guy who's got Kevin Durant, but he's a good defender, can play off the ball, can shoot. It's everything you kind of want in a complementary piece to Russell Westbrook. Adding Carmelo Anthony, there's obvious flaws that come with that. You have him and Russ, 2 very ISO-heavy players on the same team. But him as a small ball forward, playing power forward, is a major matchup problem. He's going to be a liability on defense, which he would be anywhere. But he is still one of the best offensive players in the league. And anytime you need a bucket, you can say, go get one, and he'll get one for you. Having 3 guys like that on your team is something only the Warriors can say. And the fact that they were able to get George and Anthony without giving up their major role players was huge. I think they're a team that has a very good starting lineup. Andre Roberson needs to learn how to shoot and make free throws. And until he does that, they're not going to compete. They're not going to beat the Warriors. But other than that, they have a roster that's as good as any other than the Warriors.
All right, poll up here for you guys, and we want your votes. Which team is the biggest threat to Golden State? Is it the Thunder, the Cavs, the Rockets, or a like for a half vote here, Spurs, Celtics? Brian, you have the Thunder at 2, but do you think that they are the biggest threat?
The Thunder, in terms of talent, are the second best team. So if you're talking in that sense, yes. But if you're talking about team that's the biggest threat, I would say Cleveland, because as we talked about with the Cavs, they're better equipped to handle them this year with the addition of Crowder and more versatility defensively to be able to switch everything and guard those shooters. And the time they'd play them would be in the finals, where if you're the Warriors, you just came off, you would assume 2 grueling series against either some combination of Spurs, Thunder, Rockets. You would have beat 2 of them and then go play a Cleveland team that's better to handle you now. Warriors are still the heavy favorites, but the Cavs, I think, are the biggest threat to them because of those reasons.
I see very much split votes here, so we will call it a tie. Once again, folks, today's show is brought to you by the Gametime app. Get it at chatsports.com/tickets. It's the #1 app if you need last-minute sports tickets, NBA tickets, concert tickets, whatever. Up to 60% off compared to the other ticket sale people. Again, that's chatsports.com/tickets, the Gametime app. The reviews on the iOS and Play Store are fantastic. Speaking of fantastic, Brian, at #1, I think it's pretty much a consensus here. It's the Golden State Warriors. I don't think maybe I don't know this, but you'll have a hard time finding anyone who thinks Golden State shouldn't be #1 right now if they're being unbiased.
They are as perfectly constructed of a team as there's been in NBA history. And last year, they were still trying to work in Kevin Durant. You would assume that that's going to be a little bit easier and they'll become a little bit more familiar playing with him this year. So, and they were able to, they brought back Iguodala. They brought back Sean Livingston. They let Ian Clark go, but you replaced him with Swaggy P. You brought in Omri Caspi. You got guys who they have, along with having the best starting lineup, they have arguably one of the best benches in the West. It's almost unfair.
I would say that it kind of is unfair. This Golden State team is just so talented. And then to get a guy like Nick Young, who, is inconsistent. He's, he is who he is, but he can give you another extra scoring pop off the bench.
He is going to have his most Swaggy P-ist year ever because he's playing in the free-flowing Warrior system where he's going to be able to run around and shoot it whenever he wants to. It's going to be awesome.
All right, folks, we'll take you back here through the power ranks one more time for those of you just joining us. The Brooklyn Nets are at 30, the Bulls at 29, the Magic at 28, the Hawks at 27, and the Knicks at #26. Pacers check in at #25, the Suns at 24, the Kings at 23, and the LA Lakers at #22. The Mavs at 21, and then at #20 here as we move forward, the Pistons, the 76ers at 19, the Jazz at 18, the Heat at 17, and the Charlotte Hornets at #16. The Grizzlies are 15, Portland's 14, Denver is 13, the Pelicans check in at number 12, and the Bucks are at #11. Into the top 10 now, the Clippers at 10, Toronto's at 9, the Wizards are at #8, Minnesota's at 7, and the Spurs are #6. And then for the top 5 here, Boston checks in at 5, the Cavs at 4, the Houston's at #3, the Thunder are at 2, and the Golden State Warriors check in at #1. Once again, folks, I am Tom Downey, joined on the Gametime hotline is Brian Rauf. Follow him on Twitter at BRauf33, and I'm at WhatGoingDowney. If you guys missed anything, don't worry. We're going to play it all again for you, so don't go anywhere, and you can see the ranks being unveiled again. Once again, folks, this is the Chat Sports. Again, thank you to Gametime for sponsoring today's show. Check them out at chatsports.com/tickets. It's the Gametime app. That will do it for us today. You guys stay classy out there.